Hello and welcome back to my channel.
Mr. Kennedy!
And today we're going to continue on Southwest Asia, Section 1, on page 441 under Population Patterns. Because water is very scarce in most of this region, its people cluster where there is water for drinking and cleaning. As a result, the region's population has clustered for centuries in the places where the most water. These places include the mountains of Iraq and Yemen, near the Tigris and Euphrates River of Iraq, and desert oases on the Arabian Peninsula. Remember, people live by water because it helps them live. Now, as we've talked about before in this section, some nations in the region have used money from oil and gas sales to build desalination plants, which is what? What is desalination? The removal of salt from salt water. Okay. Now, countries usually build desalination plants near their cities. Except for Yemen, the countries of the region are heavily urbanized, which means what? Most of the people live near or in cities. Money from oil and natural gas sales has helped these countries develop jobs in construction and services. These kinds of jobs are usually found in cities. Most people from outside of this region have also moved to oil-producing areas in search of jobs. Arabia and Iraq have some of the highest rates of population growth in the world, partially because of migration and high birth rates. Local customs and religious traditions practiced in many parts of this region favor large families. Okay, now let's move to page 442 and summarize page 442 to page 443. A diverse region. In most of the countries of Arabia and Iraq, Arab Muslims form a majority. Majority means what? More than half the population are Arab Muslims. In every country, Arabs dominate politics. However, most countries in Arabia and Iraq have large non-Arab minorities. Even among Arab Muslims, there are important religious differences. The vast majority of the people of Arabia and Iraq follow Islam. So let's talk Muslim here. How are the Shiite and the Sunni Muslim men different? If you look on page 442 at the picture here. How are the Shiite and the Sunni Muslim similar? Beards, they wear robes, and they have covered hair. How are these Muslim men different? They have different head and hair coverings. So they're similar because they both have beards, they wear robes, and they cover their hair. How are they different? Different head and hair coverings. Okay, the vast majority of the people of Arabia and Iraq follow Islam. However, there are important differences within Islam. Long ago, the religion split into two main groups, the Sunnis and the Shiites. Most people in Oman follow a third branch of Islam called Abadism. The majority of the region's people are Sunnis, even though the Shiites are the majority in some places. Most Iraqis are Shiite Arabs. Since the elections of 2005, Shiites took power in Iraq for the first time. So now, let's kind of go back and summarize Section 1, since it's been a little while since we've talked about Section 1. Section 1, physical features of this area. Arabia, also known as the Arabian Peninsula, is surrounded on three sides by water. Most of Arabia and Iraq are on the Arabian Plate, and the Arabian Plate is in effect a plateau or raised area that slopes toward the east. The Tigris and Euphrates River are two important rivers in this area. These rivers provide fresh water to a region that is mostly desert, oil and gas riches. Remember, there was once a shallow sea between what is now the Arabian Peninsula and the rest of Asia. When living things in the sea died, their decayed bodies formed a thick layer of muck on the sea floor. Forces within Earth slowly pushed the Arabian Plate against the Eurasian Plate and bent it downward into folds. These pockets are known as fold traps because the undersea layer of muck became trapped in them. Heat and pressure from inside Earth transferred muck over millions of years into oil and natural gas. Because oil and gas are the remains of living things, they are called fossil fuels. These fold traps have given Saudi Arabia the world's largest oil reserves and output. Now, moving on to living on oil. The importance of oil, because these countries lack water, they use money from oil and gas sales to build water facilities. Vast deserts and scarce water. The main ecosystems across this region are desert and desert scrub. Farming is possible where there is enough water. So, what two rivers would be important to use for farming? Euphrates and Tigris. If you picked that, you are correct. Now, most people in Iraq live in the valleys around the Euphrates and the Tigris River. Very good. Desalination is what? The removal of salt from salt water. Population patterns. The countries of this region are heavily urbanized. Most people live in cities. Arabia and Iraq have some of the highest rates of population growth in the world because local customs and religious traditions practiced in many parts of the region favor large families. So, that's wrapping up section 1. Hopefully we have a grasp of what's going on. Now let's move into section 2.